surprisingly went through satellite. It was not through the cable or fiber cable. Via satellite, the satellite earth station at Abuko, and then the circuit was connected directly to London. Before that, just few years prior that, we have only one signal link, which is a 9.6 kilobit. That is what we used to use to send basic email prior to the establishment of this dedicated circuit, which was 2 megs for the whole country in 1998. 2 megs was the link established to provide internet service to the Gambia in 98.
At first though, usage of the internet was typically in the office setting, where computers gradually replaced noisy typewriters and the telex and fax machines became obsolete. In the early 2000s, however, the dynamic started to change as computers and access to the internet was less of a luxury.
Later on, there was the cross-Gambia cable, because as a country we had the opportunity to be part of the SAT-3 submarine cable, but we lost that opportunity. But nonetheless, Gamtel, as the incumbent, partnered with Sonatel to at least have the cross-Gambia cable. So Gambia, we were having internet. Prior to this, we were having internet using the cross-Gambia cable. It's a terrestrial cable that runs across from around Banjul, going all the way, Banjul Barra crossing of Siliti, all the way to Dakar. And in Senegal, it goes on the SAT-3, which is another submarine cable. So this also had we also had capacity issues.
The intervening years saw a gigantic surge in demand for internet access and quality information communications technology services in general, principally because of the stranglehold the internet was beginning to have on the way Gambians live their lives and still do, and the bounty of opportunities ICTs offer. Circumstances and the turn of events, more or less, forced local private companies, the government-owned telecommunication giants, and the government itself to combine efforts and enter into a partnership.
As a country, we were growing. The demand for broadband, the demand for internet was actually more than what we had. So as a country, as a government, as a ministry, something needed to be done. And then engagement had started. Gamtel started engagement also to be part of the ACE consortium. Then later the World Bank came and subsequently supported the intervention. It was a $35 million grant from the World Bank, and then 25 was actually used for the submarine to land the cable. For the first time in 2012, the country, we had the submarine cable which was landed. So this drastically changed the landscape of the country. It was as a country, the capacity we had was drastically increased by more than 3 folds.
2012, when ACE was launched, on the very day of the launch, this capacity increased from 6 STM capacity to almost about 60, because every entity then started having enough capacity, bandwidth capacity for its utilization. Today, I can tell you in this country that the capacity we are using is almost, on the ACE cable, is almost over 800 STM1 capacity. The one that is actually activated, that we use in activated, it's above the ranges of 200 STM capacity. It's far more than that. Meaning that there is an increase in the demand for ICT and the increase in the supply, the actual supply and the utilization, from 6 STM1 capacity to almost over 100. This is going to be about 800% increase. So obviously, yes, it has. And who are using this capacity? Educational institutions are using it. Financial institutions are using it. Ministries themselves, government institutions are using it. The private members are using it. Look at the WhatsApp messages that you are having. Almost anyone's access to that WhatsApp. The resource they are using, that bandwidth that they are using, is provided by the GSC. So imagine if we have to travel back in time to 2012. Today, the number of connectivity and reliance on WhatsApp that it is doing for our own economic growth. If we have to go back to 2012 and we want to use that 6% capacity, that cannot even satisfy the capacity needs of QCell customers or AfriCell customers or even GAMCell customers. So obviously, that's a great impact.
The sudden jump in ICT usage, the corresponding growth in investment on the part of service providers, and the dynamic and ever-evolving nature of the internet in particular, as well as the exponential growth of social media call for prudent policy, legal and regulatory frameworks. The first intervention in policy domain was the National Information Communication Infrastructure Policy, popularly called NICI then. Several other policy documents followed suit, but whilst NICI and its immediate successors looked at infrastructure challenges at the time, by and large, the subsequent generation of policies looked at specific issues.
The government of the Gambia is very much on the move in terms of its ICT programs and policies, especially policy initiatives that are geared towards enhancing the overall performance of the sector in achieving the critical enabler 5 of our national development plan, which is to make the Gambia a digital nation. And through this, we have initiated a number of programs and actions. First, we have our ICT for development policy developed. We also have the sector roadmap that ensures that there is countrywide connectivity. We also have our national broadband policy and also the cybersecurity and also all other policies that are geared towards supporting the efforts to make the Gambia a digital nation.
The Africa Coast to Europe submarine cable is certainly a game changer, for it has remarkably increased the Gambia's international internet connectivity. However, its availability laid bare another bottleneck, hindering efforts to bring fast and reliable internet to the doorstep of Gambians, irrespective of where they live.
While ACE was being done also, because that is just one thing, having the submarine cable, but the other critical thing is having the national fiber backbone. So then the ECO1 project was conceptualized, the ministry spearheaded that, and then GAMCell implemented the ECO1 project, and then the national fiber backbone was implemented. Prior to the ECO1, we had a fiber backbone only on the south bank from Banjul to Basse, but this had been mutilated on so many occasions because of cuts here and there, and people stealing, cutting it, thinking they can get copper from it, they're not knowing it's fiber. So so what was done was a new fiber cable was laid on the south bank to replace what was there, and also a fresh one on the north bank, which was never in existence. So right now what we have as a country, we have 3 rings of fiber. So if anything happens, if there's any cut, traffic should be able to be rerouted. So and then somewhere in Fatoto or around the Woolly area, because the bridge at the time there was no bridge, what we have over there was aerial fiber. So but once the bridge is completed, I am certainly sure that the fiber will be laid. And then with the Farafenni also, with the coming of the bridge, so now we have the fiber running from Farafenni all the way going to Soma, because now you have the bridge. That was the gap before, but since you have a bridge now, so we have actually been able to close that loop.
After the successful rollout of ACE and ECO1 in quick succession, the Ministry of Information and Communications Infrastructure shifted its focus to another critical area in its drive to ensure that fixed broadband internet is brought to homes, offices and institutions that depend on the internet for their operation. But the prohibitive cost of the internet and issues around reliability still continue to linger.
If you look at the reports as a country, the broadband penetration rate is still in single digits, which is unfortunate because most people actually are using mobile broadband. But when we talk about fixed broadband, we mean fixed broadband, so that myself and you will be able to have, internet in our homes, not necessarily using our mobile data. So ACE was able to bring that super capacity. Equan was able to bring that fiber, and now NBN also came to address the middle and last mile. The NBN is the National Broadband Project, which was actually a $25 million loan from the Exim Bank of China, which is expected to be paid back, of course. So this brought in fiber to the doorsteps of businesses, homes, corporates, etc. So in some areas it's actually a last mile, while in some areas it's middle mile, because it was able to just get it to a point, to let's say the FDT, fiber distribution terminal. So later you'll be able to pick it from the FDT to the homes. So well, this has actually drastically helped in reducing the cost, because once this was done, this ministry engaged the regulator PURA to look at the pricing regime, and as a country we were able to bring down the pricing by actually more than 50%, which is very, very positive.
Yes, they've brought in the ACE cable. Yes, they've rolled out EcoOne and all these other amazing projects. But then again, the last mile solution is what's left. And yet still, with all this that's happening, we're still being, I mean, you have the internet cost in this country is super high. I mean, businesses like myself, where internet is our core business, stability of that internet is a challenge. Yet we're paying through our noses, but sometimes we can go up and down like this on bandwidth that we paid for. People aren't getting what they're paying for. You pay for 10 meg, you're lucky if you're getting 2.5 or 3 stable. So these are some of the things we need to look at as well. Service level agreements and holding providers accountable. If I pay for 5 meg, I should get 5 meg. Why should I settle for 1.5 meg because you're having issues? That's not my problem. When it's time to pay my bill, I pay my bill, and I'm paying for 5 meg, I should have 5 meg. So these are some of the challenges, and I think we need to, I don't know if Pura's going to be on this interview, but I think that's really something they need to look at the level of the consumer, and really look at internet costs for the consumer. People aren't getting what they're paying for. And I'm speaking now as a consumer. I've taken my hat off as the IT Association president. I'm now talking as a consumer. And to be very frank with you, across the board, it doesn't matter what provider you're with. When you pay for 5 meg or 10 meg or whatever it is you're paying, which is, by the way, really high, you're not getting what you're paying for. And that needs to be looked at as well.
When you look at the last demand-side survey we did, when you look at the adult population of the Gambia, 98.6% of Gambian adults have a mobile phone. Now, the main challenge with mobile phones is it affordable for the Gambian populace? Now, when I'm talking about affordability, I'm not talking about a device. I'm talking about a service. Now, that is the main challenge we are facing. When you look at a standard mobile broadband connection, an average Gambian has to pay upwards of maybe 15 to 20% of their monthly income just to afford maybe 1 gigabyte standard mobile data connection. So now the issue has shifted from coverage and access to affordability, and that is what we're working on as both a regulator and in conjunction with Moici and the wider government framework to ensure that it is affordable. But in terms of penetration, definitely the Gambia is way up there. In terms of African countries, we're probably in the top 3, top 5 highest in terms of penetration, and it would be good to further just expand. Of course, we have been favored by God because of our geography in this sense, so we just have to make sure we cross over the benchmark and make the services more affordable to the populace.
What we now need to work hard on is to achieve our last mile broadband connectivity. And currently the Ministry of Information and Communication Infrastructure is doing a study to pilot a project called E-Power Project, which will ensure that wherever you have NAWEC electricity poles, you should be also be able to have broadband connectivity. This study is already ongoing, and the good thing about it also is that the OMBG project that is going to be inaugurated soon already comes with a broadband line, and that will help us to achieve a greater part of our connectivity issues, our last mile connectivity issues, especially in the rural areas. And this quadruple play e-power project will greatly accelerate our efforts to make the Gambia one of the highly connected countries in the region here.
There seems to be a general acknowledgement that the cost of internet should be further reduced. But how? An industry titan with vast experience in the complex world of information communications technologies thinks the solution is within reach.
So we are saying the first challenge, the first way to address is to revisit the management of that national backbone, its entire status. What should we do as a country? What should the discussion line be? How should it be?
Against the backdrop of the clamor for cheaper and more dependable internet, a vibrant and promising startup ecosystem is flourishing. The startups based at privately owned tech hubs and labs located within the Greater Banjul area are producing world-class, relevant innovations.
People are actually localizing some of these things that they're developing. They're fixing issues that are directly or indirectly affecting them at the level of our social fabric. And I think that's really important, because that's really would determine the uptake of that innovation. Because if it doesn't really fit into the social fabric, people won't use that application. People won't use that device or whatever it is you've created. But when people see that it's actually adding value or somehow solving a problem that they are facing on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, people will be more susceptible or open to actually embracing that idea. So from that angle, I think it's very, very important that these ideas are relevant. And some of the ideas that I've been seeing, it's just amazing. It's mind-blowing. Some of the companies that are really coming up, the innovative solutions that are being brought, especially with the advent of this COVID pandemic. You see some really great ideas bringing up, and kudos to really the young people. They're really, really innovative.
The blossom, however, is no accident, for it is a result of deliberate policy objective that seeks to tap the huge development potentials that can be unleashed to scale obstacles standing in the way of progress. Under the banner, Information Communications Technologies for Development.
The other thing is investment-driven policies into the sector, because government cannot do it all. Having an investment-driven policy in the education sector is very key to the development of the education sector. It's very key in harnessing talent. It's very key also in making sure that we can be the technology hub or the technology powerhouse of Africa. Since government cannot do it all, government can collaborate with the private sector to see where they can invest through innovative business models, where the private sector can gain and government can gain, while those talents can also gain. How can they also collaborate with other universities around the world, with other talent pools or technology hub around the world?
Indeed, the policy efforts are paying dividend.
We have seen a lot of rise interest in terms of software development applications. We have also seen a lot of people also venturing into agriculture. And I think one of the interesting things in our incubation model is the fact that we are actually bringing different sectors. We bring agriculture together with fashion, with idea, with technology. So for example, the tech guys will be developing solutions for the agricultural guys and the fashion guys, like e-commerce platforms, where people can actually be able to sell their fashion designs online and some of these things. So these are some of the things that are actually popping up in terms of entrepreneurship and innovation. Then when you look at the agricultural sector, we realize that our fathers, our grandfathers used to be very good farmers. But we've seen the new generation that were not, like the young people were not interested in agriculture. It's because the way agriculture was done as a subsistence farming in in comparison to business. So we're looking at agribusiness now. And when we're talking about agribusiness, is how do you actually transform your agricultural production so that it's so efficient that it is actually you're adding value to whatever you're producing. You're just not producing and selling, but you're producing, adding value to that product and be able to provide to the local and international market. You know, we have seen people, some of the entrepreneurs coming up with moringa, you know, moringa tea, and coming up with borbor tea. These are our local herb teas that are very healthy, that are actually coming up, entrepreneurs are actually coming up with some of these solutions that are actually, you know, very viable and even consumable for the international market.
We have our national broadband, project. We have our e-power project, and we have also a number of projects that should actually help, especially the youth population, to go directly into, tech business. We are working with our partners to open up tech, labs in different areas of the Gambia. We are also going to open tech hubs, in different, parts of the Gambia, because the more you have this, the more the usage will also increase. And we are also working with the postal services as part of our digital addressing system to enhance e-commerce in the Gambia.
Over the years, small-scale enterprises created by young people have been mushrooming. Apart from providing young people with the means to put food on the table, ICTs are helping to buck what could be best described as a global trend: an aging farming population and a youth folk that is not interested. The acute lack of interest in agriculture is understandable because of the multiple challenges farmers are confronted with.
Before we can have better agriculture, we need to integrate technology in it. We need to use technology as the main driver for agriculture. Today, we're talking about better techniques, precision agriculture, using satellite imageries. You can maybe know the nutrient composition of your particular soil, whether in that particular soil is groundnut the better product to use there.
The business activities of the bold, tech-savvy millennials are certainly giving the economy the nudge it needs desperately through increased trade, but their potential to create far-reaching ripples is not lost on keen watchers of the Gambia's economy, although reliable figures are hard to come by.
The internet's potential in terms of lifting people out of poverty, combined with some other strategic advantages we have as a country. First off, what comes to mind is we're an English-speaking country. We're within a favorable time zone. The potentials of outsourcing so many jobs and those jobs coming to Gambia are huge. The potentials for research are huge. You have the University of the Gambia, you have all these other private universities that really and truly can be a game changer in terms of how we use the internet to lift people out of poverty. But it goes with constant education from the grassroots, all the way as you're starting school, all the way to develop coders, gamers. Nonetheless, we've seen some very visual examples of people that have used the internet to actually gain meaningful income from it. And these are sometimes some of these app developers that are on the app stores, the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store, and some are actually monetizing their content on YouTube. So all of these are avenues where people can really, drive income generating and of course employment creating opportunities out of ICTs.
If you look at, let's say, sectoral contribution to GDP, okay, like agriculture in 2004 contributed about 29%, industry about 14%, services 57%. But if you look at services, of this 57%, 11.8% is transport, storage, and communication. And communication constitute the bulk of that 11.8%, being 8.2%. So this is significant. If you talk about what? Contribution to GDP, the GDP of the Gambia, and you look at an emerging sector like ICT, in 2004, contributing about 8.2%. This is very significant. And what is even more attractive is that over the years, communication, ICT's contribution to the economy has been trending upwards. By 2014, a decade later, it is like 10.2% in terms of its contribution to GDP.
Reliable and accurate data is the bedrock of any meaningful planning. Resource mobilization. At the Budung Maternity Hospital, a revolution of sorts is unfolding. The hospital, located in the densely populated town bordering Serekunda, is the site chosen to pilot an information technology-aided process that helps keep medical records from the cradle to the grave.
Once you are born and you get your first shot of immunization, you receive a unique identifier. That unique identifier you can use. So wherever you are in the country, once we use that unique identifier, we'll be able to know the amount, the type of vaccines that you have received. So which is a big game changer in terms of health information. But it is the first nationwide individual record system that we have. In short, we have over 100,000 children or more. Once the child is due for immunization, it sends the parents an automatic reminder, SMS reminder, that your daughter or your son is due for immunization this day. At least that will remind you that, oh, this day I need to fix it so that I can take my child to the clinic for immunization. It has never happened before, and it's fantastic that it is happening, and we are able to actually trace all those people that are defaulting in terms of immunization, and it's helping us to boost our immunization coverage as well.
From June of 2017 to January of 2021, we were gradually expanding the solution, and we achieved a national scale implementation in January of 2021. So currently, smart paper technology is implemented in 419 service delivery points across the country in both community, public and private facilities that conduct immunization services. And like I said, now basically we have 60 to 70% of all Gambian children that go for immunization services registered on our platform. We currently have registered over 250,000 kids from 0 to 5 years across the country, and all these children have their digital data stored and shared and visualized and accessible by all stakeholders and platforms.
The Ministry of Health wishes to update the general public on the current situation of COVID-19 in the Gambia. In this regard, we would like to inform the public of a confirmed case of COVID-19 who is currently in isolation and receiving excellent care.
This announcement was, to many, the most dreaded piece of news, for it triggered a deep feeling of uncertainty. But again, ICTs became handy. The edginess of the population and the little or no room for error made the resource many take for granted a ready weapon in the arsenal of the army mobilized to keep as many people safe from the coronavirus.
ICT has been one of the most important tools that the Ministry of Health has definitely used to combat the spread of COVID-19 pandemic. We all know that the disease was one of the practical issues to control it is to observe the social distancing. And for healthcare workers, we need to see patients, we need to collect data, we need to actually do our surveillance. So when the pandemic, when we announced the first case, that was the time we also, introduced what we call an e-surveillance system. And this system collects data, from wherever within the Gambia and send it to a centralized point, which is this building that you are, that we are in. Here is the Public Health Emergency Operation Center, and this is where the actual data that comes in is analyzed, and then also giving out to public in form of information, in form of sensitization,
and also in form of policy actions for decision makers to actually take. So ICT has been a practical, a very important tool that we were able to use to actually, interview patients, collect their biodata, and also do the mapping of the risk zones, in the country. So it has been a very fantastic tool that we have been using, and this particular ICT, tool I will just mention is the District Health Information System that is available countrywide. Is one we were using to actually do what we call e-surveillance.
The coronavirus pandemic made lockdown a household word as nations play catch-up or try to slow down the spread of the airborne virus. The closure of schools meant a serious reduction in the required contact hours between teachers and students, but certainly not a halt to learning.
At the level of the Ministry of Higher Education, and of course at the level of the basic and secondary education, because we have this joint education sector policy, clearly advocates for a digital transformation of the sector and digitization of education. So the policies and the frameworks are there. They are very right and they are in place. It is more or less a question of implementation. Yeah, implementation is slow. It's weak, and then it's a gradual process. But then this has been, the emergence of COVID-19 has further strengthened the need to consolidate efforts to make sure the digitalization process is accorded high priority. We have all seen the closure of schools. That did not necessarily mean the end of learning at the level of tertiary and higher education institutions, but we have seen a rapid and a very timely shift towards delivering education using distance learning by most of the universities and the tertiary institutions in the country. So to build on those successes, we are going to support a full-scale digitalization process, beginning with the ministry itself, because we need absolute data. We use big data to analyze what's going on in these institutions.
The lack of a cure or vaccine means avoiding contact was the first and only line of defense then. There is, however, a little-known local creation that could come in handy during such situations. Robots or anything like them were only seen in videos, but now there is a growing field of young people who are up to their necks in this domain of innovation.
I mean, you talk to me about health, I'll tell you there's somebody that has an amazing solution that I have seen a robot that can actually serve someone at the hospital and not allow any human contact. And it was built around the whole COVID idea of social distancing and being able to deal with patients remotely and being able to serve patients in isolated areas. I've seen that, and I've seen the robot, and it works, and it's functional. And this is something that can easily be scaled. And this was built by a Gambian. And the same goes for other health projects that I have seen.
Honestly, I've interacted and I've met many talents that are produced locally, who are at least striving when it comes to innovation, when it comes to bringing their ideas to something that is tangible and usable. There is need for an innovative policy or innovation policy. It is innovation policy that will bring those talents on board and that will create the conducive environment for ideas, different ideas within the country to strive. Not only the ideas to strive, but to be scaled and make in something that is usable.
It is still early days, but another sector that could be significantly impacted by ICT innovation is the financial sector, where traditional financial institutions still reign and cash is king. This situation could soon be disrupted by the Young Turks.
That same goes for financial products, financial systems that have been built by Gambians, original, from 0 to 100. So the solutions are out there. I think also from the level of the private sector, we're pushing as hard as we can, but also at the policy level, it's important that when these things are developed, the platform is there for them to actually be absorbed in the system. And that's where you come up with challenges such as maybe I would say at the level of financial products, we come to the central bank, for example. And I think there needs to be some policies in place to be able to support some of these startups that come up with some of these financial solutions that they develop. It's important that at the level of central bank, there's some level of, I would say, sandbox, which will allow the companies or the startups to be able to really grow. And this means you need to allow some level of connectivity for the startups to connect to the relevant parties to be able to test out their products. This is happening all around the world. I think it's important that really we have some level of understanding between the central bank and these startups so that they're able to test out those solutions. It's really, really important. Again, that is stifling innovation. Because if you develop a product that runs on a platform like a financial institution, you're not able to connect to that institution. How are you ever going to be able to test out your idea? You can't. How are you ever going to be able to know if that actually works?
I think for us, this is a move in the right direction. A lot of the transactions is what? Is electronic, ICT. And I think that is the way forward. Like we have seen, let's say, with the introduction of mobile money, and for me, I pray that this catches up very, very fast, like wildfire, where everybody would be able to use it across the board. You go to places like Kenya, etc. So I think that is digitizing the economy is something that the Ministry of Finance really. But the bottom line is that the Ministry of Finance is significantly interested in and is investing time, energy, and resources into digitizing the economy, and is working with the Ministry of Information Communication Infrastructures to see how this can be how this can become a reality, or how we can enhance it. Because if we look at it already, we have platforms, like a lot of the payment of the government is digitized. Okay, we have the IFMI, Integrated Financial Management Information System. If our IFMI system here has issues and cannot work, you wouldn't be able to transact anything. You wouldn't be able to raise payments, you wouldn't be able to make payments. So that has made life very, very easy, and has made government to be able to produce its financial statements far quicker and more effective, and has made auditing easy. We used to have huge backlogs of of cases. Or financial statements that are not audited.
With all sectors jumping on the information communications technology bandwagon to avoid lagging behind, it is only natural the government too brings its services to the doorsteps of the citizenry by leveraging the power of the internet.
You also have to remember that in order to effectively roll out a successful fintech program, you should be able to have the local women and men that have not had the opportunity to go to formal schools, to be able to understand how to use their mobile phones to log in and out, to do certain things, to get access to certain services. Because, believe it or not, just like it is happening in the developed world, Africa is also catching up very fast. And most of these health services and also financial services and government services may not necessarily be available out there in the open source. You will have to get them on your connected devices. So that is why a lot of African countries are looking at mass digital literacy initiatives, where you gather the local people, to help them understand some of these initiatives, how to make use of simple devices to conduct some of their transactions. And that that's something that a lot of countries are looking at, and Gambia is not exception.
The e-government program was actually implemented between 2009 and 2010 through the support of the UNDP to the government of the Gambia. And basically what this project has three phases, three components of this project. The first component looked at the creation of a government website where all government programs in relation to internet will be hosted. And then the other component also helped develop websites for all government ministries and departments. Then the third phase also looked at provision of email addresses to all civil servants. Then these were the three components of the e-government program. Yes. In terms of achievement, like I said, it has really helped government for the first time to have a website that will host all its internet-related activities. And in doing that, one key issue that has, one achievement in that is that it has really helped government to be able to secure its processes through the internet by having a data center which was hosted in country and managed by government. So it has really helped in terms of securing our information through that process.
We are also working with our international partners who actually have realized that the ICT sector should be given the much needed attention in terms of our prioritization efforts, in terms of our digitization efforts. Because remember, when you have your digitization enhanced, it also brings in the much needed revenue in the in the country. It also reduces corruption. It also enhances performance. So therefore, I mean, digitization comes with some wonderful things that actually should be supported. And that is why this ministry is working with our critical partners, including those in the private sector, to ensure that our digital agenda is radically on the move and also robust enough to deal with the issues that we envisage to implement.
The drive to turn the Gambia into a thriving digital nation in line with the National Development Plan and the globally agreed Sustainable Development Goals is on course. There is, to some extent, iron will and determination to turn the Smiling Coast into one of the most wired countries in the world.